Have you ever been in one of those arguments? You know the kind. You're talking about something that happened, a memory you are absolutely 100% certain of, and they just look at you and say it never happened that way. Or worse, that you're just being too sensitive, that you're misremembering. It's crazy making. Well, today we're going to break down exactly what that is. It's one of the most powerful forms of psychological manipulation out there, the systematic rewriting of history. We're going to look at how a shared past gets turned into a weapon, turning your own memories against you to make you the villain in your own story.
You remember a fact, but they insist it never happened. I mean, that experience is just so disorienting, isn't it? It's maddening. So why does the past, something that should be solid, something that's over, why does it become the most dangerous battlefield in a toxic relationship? Well, this is the paradox we're diving into today, story rewriting. And let's be clear, this is not just a simple disagreement. It's a deliberate, calculated manipulation of history designed to control the present. It's a violation not just of your trust in them, but of your trust in your own mind.
Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll set the scene, the past as a battlefield. Then, we're going to put a name to the tactic, what we're calling the narrative flip. Section 3 is the deep dive. We'll break down the three-stage mechanism they use. After that, we'll get into the psychology, this clash of realities that makes it all work. Then, crucially, we'll cover the defense protocol, and we'll wrap it all up by talking about how you reclaim your own unbreakable truth.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the past as a battlefield. We tend to think of history as something fixed, like it's written in stone. But in a manipulative dynamic, the past becomes dangerously flexible. It's more like clay than stone. It can be reshaped and remolded to serve whatever agenda is happening in the present moment. And that's the whole paradox of a malleable history. Now, this right here is the absolute key to understanding why this is so damaging. This isn't just about winning an argument about something that happened last Tuesday. The real goal is to destabilize your entire sense of reality right now. Think about it. Your memory is the foundation you stand on. If someone can shake that foundation, if they can make you doubt what you know is true, then your confidence, your judgment, your ability to trust yourself, it all starts to crumble. The formula is simple and terrifying. Control the past, and you control the present. So we've established the battlefield. Now let's get a lot more specific about the weapon being used. In this next section, we're going to put a name to this tactic. We're going to define what we call the narrative flip, and really get to the bottom of the rewrite's true goal. What is the person doing this actually trying to accomplish? At its heart, story rewriting is a form of cognitive abuse. And the most important word there is systematically. This isn't an accident. It's not someone just having a bad memory. No, this is a methodical process of changing the meaning of past events. And why? The motivation is almost always the same, to get out of being held accountable. You know how it goes. If they said something cruel, suddenly it's, I never said that. If they broke a major promise, it becomes, that was never the plan to begin with. It's an escape hatch from the consequences of their own actions.
So how do they actually pull this off? Well, they have a toolkit. First up is gaslighting. That's the sledgehammer. It's the outright denial of facts. That never happened. You're just making that up. The second tool is omission, which is way more subtle. They'll tell the story, but they'll just conveniently leave out the parts where they messed up. And the third tool, reframing, this one is maybe the most dangerous. They don't deny what happened, but they twist its meaning entirely, making your reasonable reaction out to be some kind of malicious attack. And all of these tools serve just one purpose, protecting their own ego.
And that brings us to the end game. The whole point of this entire mechanism is to achieve one single outcome, to take all of the blame, all of the shame from their shoulders and put it squarely onto yours. By rewriting history, they get to be the victim, or maybe the long-suffering hero, and that forces you into the role of the unstable, the unrational, the bad guy. They literally make you the villain of your own life story.
So this leads us right into the real nuts and bolts of our explainer, Section 3, the mechanism itself. We've talked about the what and the why. Now we need to get into the how. How is this edit of history actually made so effectively? Well, we're going to break down the systematic three-stage process they use to dismantle your reality and install theirs instead. It really is a three-act play. It always starts with historical deconstruction, attacking the very facts of what happened. Once they've sown enough doubt, they move to stage 2, antagonist assignment. This is where they flip the script on you, and it all leads to the final stage, something called fictive coherence, which is the psychological trap where you end up accepting their version of reality.
Okay, let's look at step 1, historical deconstruction. Think of this as the demolition phase. The manipulator goes after the load-bearing walls of your memory, the specific moments that clearly show they were in the wrong. Then they just start chipping away with those classic gaslighting phrases. Are you sure you remember it that way? You're always so sensitive, it wasn't a big deal. The goal here isn't just to win the argument, it's to make you fundamentally doubt your own mind.
And once that foundation is cracked, they move to step 2, antagonist assignment. This slide shows it perfectly. They'll say, your reaction was the problem. Your anger, your hurt, that was the real issue. But the reality, of course, is that your reaction was a response to the problem they created. They just snip their action out of the timeline and make it seem like your emotion came out of nowhere. This is the flip. Your totally justified response is now painted as an unprovoked attack. And just like that, you've been cast as the villain.
And this all leads to the final, and honestly, the most tragic stage: fictive coherence. At this point, your brain is holding two completely different realities. There's the one you remember, and there's the confident, unwavering story they're telling you. This creates an incredible amount of psychological stress. It's called cognitive dissonance. And our brains are wired to get rid of that stress. It's just too painful. So to find peace, to make the internal chaos stop, the brain will often take a shortcut. It will reluctantly let go of its own truth and accept their false, their fictive narrative, just to get back to a feeling of shared reality.
So why on earth is this so effective? You might be wondering, why does this work so often? Well, that brings us to section 4, the clash of realities. You see, it's not just that one person is being manipulative. It works because it's a psychological mismatch. It exploits a fundamental difference in what the two people in the dynamic actually need.
This slide lays it out perfectly. It really is a clash of realities. On one side, the manipulator's primary need is ego maintenance. Their goal is to protect a flawless self-image, which means they have to avoid blame at all costs. On the other side, your vulnerability is a very human need for what's called interpersonal coherence. You just want things to make sense. You want a stable, shared reality with the people you care about. So you've got one person whose brain is screaming, "I must be right," and another whose brain is screaming, "We need peace." And in that clash, the person who just needs peace is the one who usually gives in.
Okay, understanding all of this is absolutely crucial, but it's not enough. So now we're going to shift gears from analysis to empowerment. This next section is all about building your defense. How do you project your own history? How do you anchor yourself to reality when someone is actively trying to cut you adrift?
The single most powerful defense tool is something we're calling the factual external anchor. This is more than just keeping a journal. It is a conscious strategy. You are creating an objective, external record of reality. And the reason it has to be external is simple. When your internal memory is under constant attack, you can't rely on it alone. You need a source of truth that exists outside of the argument, something that can't be distorted or reframed. This anchor becomes your rock. It's your unimpeachable counter-narrative.
So what does this anchor actually look like in practice? You have to be meticulous. You document dates and times. That locks down the timeline. You write down direct quotes if you can, because they love to twist your words. Note any specific plans or decisions that were made. And this next one is so important. Document your own feelings and perceptions at the time. Write down, "In that moment, I felt betrayed." They can argue about what happened, but they can't argue with how you felt. And of course, save any hard evidence, screenshots, emails, anything that validates your reality.
Now, once you have your factual anchor, you can use the key verbal defense, refusing the flip. When they try to drag you into that circular debate about the past, you simply don't engage. You state calmly, "I recall the facts differently, and I'm going to rely on my documented reality." The power in that sentence is that it's not an argument. It's a full stop. It's a boundary. You are refusing to step into their fictional courtroom. You are staying on the firm ground of your truth.
We've analyzed the problem. We've outlined the defense. So now, in our final section, let's bring it all home. Let's focus on the ultimate goal here, which is reclaiming your own narrative and understanding what it really means when someone starts editing your shared history.
Look, if you take only one thing away from our entire time together, please let it be this. When someone starts systematically editing the past, it is not a sign that things are getting better. It is a giant flashing red light that the manipulation is escalating. The fight has moved from being about your actions to being about your mind, your very perception of reality. And recognizing that shift, that's a critical step.
So let's recap the whole story here. We've learned that story rewriting is really the narrative flip,
A powerful tool used for one thing, the manipulator's ego protection. Because they can't handle the truth of their own actions, they have to literally destroy that truth. And the pattern is predictable. It starts with historical deconstruction, where they demolished your memory of what happened. And that clears the way for them to force the antagonist assignment, reframing everything to make you the problem.
And this whole process is designed to push you into that state of fictive coherence, where it just feels easier to accept the lie than to keep fighting the psychological war. But here's the beautiful thing. Awareness breaks that loop. By building your factual external anchor, you give yourself an unshakable foundation, and by learning to refuse the flip, you decline their invitation to live in a fantasy world. You assert your documented truth, and you stop them from making you the villain.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. This entire manipulation depends on your reality being subjective, emotional, and easy to bend. But the moment your history is documented, the moment it becomes objective, the entire power dynamic shifts. So the final question is pretty simple. If your history is documented, who really gets to be the villain?